Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Jenny Aiello, and this is With Love, Jenny, a podcast where we meet ourselves right in the heart of our vulnerability and authenticity. In this sacred space where it's just you and I dive into real life, rich with wisdom and opportunities for deep healing. I explore what it means to truly connect to ourselves, to each other, and to something much greater than us all. In each podcast, I like to meet life right where it touches us most, in our tenderness, in our truth, in our struggles and our strength. So wherever you are on your journey, or whatever it is that you're carrying, no matter how light or heavy, just know I'm so grateful that you're here with me today. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's begin today's episode. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny here with my co-host, Kristen, and we have a hot topic for you today. We are heading into the last days of December, and today actually marks the winter solstice, which is the day of the year with the least amount of daylight. I love this day, and I have my own personal traditions around this day. But we also know that Hanukkah just ended and Christmas is coming ahead, and the new year will be here before we know it. We are going to unpack how we can navigate and balance our own self-care while meeting others' expectations during this magical time of year. Family traditions, holiday traditions, they can be so fun or they can be so stressful. So, as always, I want to share a story today about the people-pleasing parts of me and how they can actually sabotage the joy that they were meant to bring. And I got two stories for you today. So first, we're going to talk about, I want to review that. You know, in past episodes, I've told you about the people-pleasing parts of myself and my aversion to disappointing other people. Just want you to listen to these stories because they carry some of that energy of being a early childhood people pleaser and how I have a bad relationship to disappointment, which we'll talk about in future episodes. But this is a story about Christmas tree shopping. As long as I can remember, I'm not really sure how early in my childhood this began. I imagine I was 3 or 4 when it became the tradition that just my dad and I, nobody else ever got to do this. He and I would bundle up in the winter of southern West Virginia. Back then it was really cold and snowy. And we would bundle up and go out. And the town I grew up in had 3 main Christmas tree lots. We went to every single Christmas tree lot. He would ask them to hold the tree for us while we looked at the other lots. We'd circle sometimes 2 or 3 times before he would let me make the decision of what was the best Christmas tree. My dad loved the Christmas tree so much that it was such an event. He made it magical when we picked this out. And he would even sing the Christmas song, "Oh, Christmas Tree," in English and in German every year. It was just this beloved tradition. And I grew up till I was 22 years old. I guess when I was 22 was the first time I didn't go with my dad to pick out our Christmas tree. But I did go pick out a Christmas tree, and it wasn't quite the same because I didn't have my dad there who made it just this magical event. And so this tradition changed. And I thought, well, the right thing to do is to say, when I had kids, they got to go pick out the tree with their dad, right? Like that should be this thing that they get to do, but that would leave me out. And I certainly couldn't have that happen. So I created new traditions around going to get the Christmas tree. And it became a family event. We'd all go out, we'd look at the trees, we'd all vote, we'd pick them up, bring it home, and we'd have hot chocolate. My dad, after we finally picked that Christmas tree, every year went to this gas station on the way home that had this vending machine out front, and you could put in a quarter and get vending machine hot chocolate right there in the parking lot. And my dad would get us each a cup of hot cocoa, which was really hot. So it took forever for me to be able to even take a sip, but it was also really awful hot chocolate. And he loved it. I did not like that hot chocolate, but I'd never tell him I didn't want it. I always just said it was too hot. And he would finish his and I would just toss my cup in the trash can. And I, to this day, want hot chocolate after we buy our Christmas tree because of that. Even though I didn't like the hot chocolate, I loved the feeling I had with just my dad and I standing in that cold, all bundled up, saying nothing and sipping our hot chocolate. I felt the love. I felt the magic of it. I felt how special those moments were with him. And it didn't matter whether I even liked the tree or the hot chocolate. It was just my childhood love memory, right? So let's fast forward. We carried on that tradition, but it wasn't quite the same as it was because it was a family event. It wasn't just me with one of my kids. I had 5. How could I pick just one to do that tradition with? So I found we were actually shopping. We had just moved to North Carolina from the Southwest, was shopping, and I found this big coffee table book in this little bookstore that was called Christmas in America. And I opened it up and I looked, it was pictures. They had pictures of Christmas with the Rockettes in New York City. And then Florida's picture was Santa skiing on water skis. And California had Santa with palm trees and sailboats. And so every state had its version of Christmas that you could look at. So I thought, well, I'm new to North Carolina. Let's look up what picture they chose for our new home state. When I found it, it took my breath away. And I said, I have to go there. I have to find this place. It was a picture from the balcony of a church that's in Old Salem. I think it's called Home Church. And they were holding beeswax candles up in the air, and it was candlelit. It was kind of old world decorated church with boughs of holly and cedar. And it was breathtaking. And so it turned out it was just 2 hours away. And so that year we went to our very first Christmas Eve service. It's called the Love Feast in this church that was established in the 1700s. And this particular sanctuary was built in 1800, completed in 1800. So every year we had a family tradition to go to this old church 2 hours away. We got up, we always stopped and had a big breakfast together, big family breakfast at Cracker Barrel. Then we would go, and we had to be there by noon to be first in line so we could get the seats that we wanted. And it would stand outside in the cold for about an hour and a half to 2 hours till they opened the door. And we stood out in rain, in freezing cold, and sometimes it would be like spring weather. It didn't matter. We for 30 years were going to this love feast, standing in line, getting there at just the right time. Then you would get inside and you still had to wait because it was another hour before the service would begin. And so it is a Moravian church. We are not affiliated with the Moravian church per se, but this beautiful church with these beautiful people gave my family this gift of traditional love feast every year for my children's entire childhood. And I guess my older children didn't start as early as the others did, but from the time we moved here, it was part of our tradition. Well, I think we were about to celebrate our 30th love feast in a row. We never missed. And COVID happened and there was no service. So our tradition was a whole day. It opened up because what were we going to do? And there was just it was not going to be the same. And I felt really lost. I didn't really know what to do with myself. I tried to just relax and say I have a bonus day to get extra things done, and baking and cooking and shopping and wrapping and doing all the stuff we do at Christmas. And at this point, my children were all grown. They were adults. And they were bringing their children with them to this love feast. So now it was a generational tradition, which meant even more to me. And I was into the tradition so much that I ordered the same food every year from Cracker Barrel. After the service, we always went and had a big Italian dinner at a restaurant before driving home. Everything stayed the same. We did the same thing for 30 years on this day. And I was really lost. But COVID, when it broke that tradition, brought to the forefront the fact that some of my children hated this tradition. They did not like getting up early. They did not like standing in lines. They did not enjoy one part of this day. It was miserable. Their kids weren't in their nap schedule. They were worried because they weren't behaving. They were loud. They were crying. They were managing their kids, which I didn't mind at all if they were crying. It was just, I wanted us to all be happy and enjoy it as much as I did. And I realized how much they didn't. And my one son said, "It's just so hard, Mom. It's hard for us to do those days. It's not enjoyable for us." I had to stop in that moment and really understand that it was hard for them to disappoint me. And it was also hard for me not to be disappointed. And it was hard for me not to feel like not good enough. Like my dad would have made this so magical. They'd want to do it. What's wrong with me? But my people pleaser kicked in as pressure for them not to disappoint me. Then they did their own people pleasing by never telling me that they'd rather not go at all and showing me instead how miserable they were when they were there. So this tradition, when I looked back, had become anything but desirable, but I kept going. And I had to hold on to that. I was very attached to this tradition. What came from it and the way that I had to readjust, that COVID allowed us to break that pressure to not miss a love feast. It allowed me to reevaluate what my family needed, how we could find new ways to be together as a family that everyone could enjoy, how not to give up a tradition that did matter to me. And so last year, I was like, it didn't matter to me, even if Bob didn't want to go, but he loves it as much as I do. So the two of us went. Some new family members joined us. Some of my kids went and some didn't. But everyone who was there wanted to be there. I still had the wonderful, warm feeling of everything that I could enjoy about that service and that day filled my spirit. It was the gift to me to be at that love feast every year. And so I can do that with or without my whole family loving it as much as I did. And I had to let go of it, but not let go of the tradition, let go of the expectations, let go of the pressure, and just allow that tradition to be a part of something that I could take forward for me and for others who would enjoy it just as much. So over the years, we get into this holiday season and it can feel really hard to break tradition. It can be hard when tradition is broken, when we didn't want it to be. It's hard to establish new traditions when old ones go away for various reasons. It can be hard to honor your spouse's traditions and their family and uphold yours with your family. We can get pulled in a lot of different directions. And if you're a people pleaser, it can be brutal because you're trying to make everybody happy and then you're overcommitted and exhausted trying to be everywhere for everyone and then giving up what brings you the joy that fills your soul. So from that, we can get resentful. We can get exhausted. We can get depressed. We can feel lost. All kinds of emotions can stem up from these little things that happen or don't happen during the holidays. So today we're going to talk about what your traditions are. Kristen's going to share some things, and we're going to just sort of dig into the topic of how to navigate these holidays and not lose joy, and especially not lose the love that is the source of why we have traditions in the first place. Kristen, what's your experience with all this?
I love traditions. They mean the world to me. And when they go away, it's really hard. We were talking about, as we were preparing for this show, when people die, sometimes traditions start to fall away or they just can never be the same. So how do you move forward with that? And you mentioned grieving traditions, and that really stuck out to me because I think I really need to grieve some traditions that can't happen anymore to honor how they were provided from the people that passed away, and how can I take that forward for my family. So that's kind of been what's on my mind. On my dad's side of the family, we've had this Christmas party. My grandma had 9 children. And, if you can imagine all the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, there is a lot of us. So we always got together at Christmas. The first few years, it was at different places, but for 32 years, it was at the same hall. Always beautifully decorated for Christmas. And just to go and hang out with your people was something I looked forward to. We would sing carols together. Everyone would bring food. And my grandma passed away about 4 or 5 years ago now, and it was a lot to keep up with. My aunts put it on. It was a lot to organize, and now they put it into our cousins' hands, which is the next generation, which makes sense. But it's been decided to do it in the summer now. And that really puts a damper on me because I don't go to Michigan in the summer when they hold this now. So I'm going to miss it. And it's like, it was a huge, huge part of my life. I had been going since I was a little girl. I remember running back and forth and just being crazy like a little kid, and then coming as an adult with my own children. Like, it was so special to me.
Yeah. And we do have, when those people that make the magic is what I call them, the magic makers of those traditions, are gone. And my mom used to say, it loses its sparkle a little bit. And then you're like, what feels different? When we go through the grief of the person, we also then have to grieve the magic they brought into it. For me, with the Christmas tree tradition, I really missed that. Even though my dad was still alive, they lived in Florida. We lived 2,600 miles away. If we were together for Christmas, it was at Christmas and they had already gotten the tree. And so we never really got to do that again after I grew up until the last 7 years of my dad's life. He lived with us. So he got to be a part of that family thing, but it was never just him and me and our horrible hot chocolate, gas station hot chocolate. We never did that again. But what I learned and what I realized is that while we lose that tradition that we were blessed to have, it was made for us to experience. It's kind of like that little girl had to grow up and be that magic for others, right. Be the person who created that space and brought love into that space and made that magical. And that was why I felt so bad, because I wasn't doing a very good job of that. I was relying on my kids to feel the joy that my dad filled for me without stepping in and being it for them. But we do have traditions when they no longer exist. There is sadness and there is disappointment. And, we go through our holidays and it's supposed to be such a wonderful time of year, and we carry a lot of grief, and there is a lot of joy from our memories, and there can be a lot of sadness from those memories. And we are overextending ourselves in all kinds of ways through the holidays with this undercurrent that tugs at our sleeve. Like, this is different. This isn't going to be like it always used to be. Or for people that when your children grow up and they're not home anymore, and you're looking at your spouse, if you have one, and it's like Christmas morning isn't as magical when you don't have children in the house, right? And you have to come up with new feelings, new ways to make that feeling good, positive feeling. But you have to, I think, be mindful when you embrace and create the new traditions in your home over the holidays, especially.
I agree, especially if it's a season or a holiday that you love so much. It's worth it to find new ways to go forward with it.
And it honors it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it takes effort. And if you're attached to what it should be, like, yeah, but I should feel that magical family connection that I had with my dad, that my kids should be feeling that and experiencing it. I've put an expectation on them, which is pressure. Anytime there's an expectation that you are putting on your family to show up on time or, whatever it is, we put expectations out there. You're supposed to help me. You're supposed to be here earlier. You're supposed to be the one that cuts the turkey all the time. Why are you asleep? Why aren't you doing this? We get kind of wrapped around the axle sometimes, and then it takes the joy away because we've put too much pressure on ourselves and on those around us. But also those expectations of us. And I think that's part of what I want to talk about today, because I don't know how many of people listening are people pleasers, but around the holidays, I think we're taught to be people pleasers. And I was reading an article through the Amen Clinic, actually, about people pleasing behaviors and how they can be so detrimental to our mental health, our physical health. I mean, they can impact us so deeply. And the article reviewed 6 things that you can do to offset these people-pleasing behaviors, and it's things to become aware of. So I'm going to share those, and then we can talk more about that as well. The first one is, are you giving of yourself or of gifts in order to earn approval? I do that every year. I overspend. I want to measure up. I want to make sure everyone feels how much love is in my heart is reflected by how much I give and do. And so it's like, well, it's still not enough. It's still not enough. I just need it to be more. And I get all down that highway without understanding that I don't need to really do anything to earn approval. Like I either have it or I don't. And I have both of those. But I have to stop and ask myself, what's my motivation here? In the giving, is it self-serving? Is it to bring me joy? Is it so I can, have fun? Is it because it's really making a difference to someone else? Or is it making me feel like I'm enough? I mean, I had to get really honest with myself and think, what am I doing? Why am I giving myself, my time, my energy, my attention? What am I doing when I give that to others? The second is helping people without being asked. And boy, was I bad about this when my kids were in school and the schools needed so much extra help during the holidays. So I would over volunteer. I would try to be at every kid's classroom making dozens and dozens of cookies for every kid's classmate. And when you have 5, that was a lot. And so I was volunteering because that's what I watched being modeled. It was important to volunteer. It was important to give back to your community. So I would overbook myself, and that ran me down. That would take my energy. It would be like I'd be so busy doing that I couldn't be with my family and be rested and healthy and happy. I would be like exhausted. Which takes us to the third one, saying yes when you need to say no, or especially when you mean no. And I was bad at that because, I don't want to disappoint anybody. So even though everything in me said, no, you have enough to do, my mouth would open up and say, yes, you can count on me. I'll be happy to carpool, to whatever. And I would never hold boundaries around my energy and time. And especially during the holidays, I would say yes to whatever my kids wanted or needed. I was saying yes to what anybody asked of me. So when I had to start practicing boundaries, it was really, really hard. And I would feel selfish if I didn't say yes, if I knew I could, even if that meant running myself into the ground. And I despise disappointing other people. So I fall right into those people pleasing yeses in a New York hot minute. It was like, whew, that got me into a lot. He mentioned this one, which was interesting to me, the fourth one, which is apologizing for everything that you do. And I don't know that I was guilty of that, but as I started thinking about it, I know people who were. And if they had to say no, they found themselves apologizing profusely about why they couldn't do something. And it made me wonder, is that because they saw the disappointment on my face? If I asked them to do something and they had to tell me no, did I inadvertently, facially show disappointment, which caused them shame, which caused them to say they were sorry? And I don't know. I would ask myself, why do I feel like I'm responsible for what is happening to them? And sometimes I am in the way that I'm responding. And then why do I feel like I have to offer an apology right now? Like, what is that? Is that to clear my conscience? Is that because I feel I'm disappointing someone? Like, really stop and ask yourself, what would you be saying sorry for all the time? I'm sorry, I can't do that. Is it you're sorry because you're holding a boundary? But apparently that's a thing because it made the top 6 things that people pleasers do. So try to catch if you do that. The 5th one is appeasing to avoid conflict, drama, or anger. There's a really big difference between letting go to avoid conflict and biting your tongue to avoid conflict. Letting go is much healthier, but sometimes when we don't speak up and we need to bite our tongue or suppress our emotions or withhold our truth in order to not rock the boat, then we're causing harm to ourselves. And when we do that, we build resentment and then we can become passive aggressive. So this one's really tricky for people pleasers. And I'm going to just have you revisit some situations or start to notice over the what's left of our holidays here to see if you can let go of something and not harbor resentment. Find a way that says that you can say what you need to say and then say it in a way that honors your truth and the other person's request. And then the last one, I think we're all guilty of overcommitting. When you overcommit on your calendar, I'm just guilty of this. I think I can do so much more than I can possibly do, but I overschedule myself. And I realized long ago the importance of white space. When I look at my calendar, if I don't have enough white space, I know that I'm going to be stressed out and I'm going to have, things are going to fall through the crack if I don't give myself time to really breathe and to have time to pivot and have time to take care of myself and have time to just simply be and enjoy myself. So I book appointments back to back and I don't give myself time to transition between them. I multitasked, which meant that I wasn't present to either activity. And it would just make it so stressful at the end of a lot of days of back-to-back activity. So to kind of wrap this part up, if you're a people pleaser, I hope you can pay attention to the price that you're going to pay by pleasing and start to learn about your level of exhaustion from that. Because if you're people pleasing, most likely you're going to be neglecting your needs, which makes you susceptible to getting sick. You might become passive aggressive with people. You might be storing up a lot of resentment. And all that can lead to overall a shortage of enjoyment in life, but it's also going to create more stress and anxiety and even lead you into depression. So pay attention to how much you are not speaking up, not setting boundaries, not creating the perfect holiday that works for you, that honors your traditions and everyone else's traditions, and making sure that you're bringing joy and magic and love into all that you do without exhausting yourself. And that's no easy thing to manage. Kristen, what are your thoughts about those people pleaser behaviors?
Oh, I wrote down a lot of notes as you were talking. The one thing that I was thinking about really loudly is when people are apologizing, we are trying to manage other people's feelings. And I don't think a lot of people realize how often that they're trying to manage a lot of people's feelings. Like, I'm more aware of it now, and it kind of shocks me how much I'm doing it.
Wow.
And I think it's a coping mechanism.
That feels really big. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, a lot of times, like if I feel like I disappointed someone, but I know like I had a really good intention, like I did not mean to disappoint them, but I know that they're really hurt, I'm like having anxiety over it. And I'm trying to manage their feelings in my head, and it's not helping me. So I have to realize and separate, that's them. They're allowed to let them have their feelings. Allow them to move through that. You don't have to take that on. And it's also a gift to them, because if you're holding on to it energetically, and they might be holding on to it even stronger energetically, and it's not helping anybody.
Right. Right. That's a really good example, Kristen, because that one actually, I got stuck on that. Like, I don't know how my version of that would look, but I was doing that where I was so disappointed about learning everyone didn't love this love feast Christmas Eve tradition as much as I did, would make them feel bad. Then I felt a need to say, hey, I am really sorry. But for me, that actually was a genuine apology for creating a space in the first place that made them feel they couldn't speak their truth to me. And there is a distinction between taking that on as my own and processing their emotions, let them have them, versus am I carrying shame toward myself for doing that and apologizing to myself. So there's a lot in that one. Usually the one I resist is the one that has the most growth for me. So I think you just nailed it.
And another big thing is too, like, especially like when you get married and you bring in another family, like you have to like, or at least I feel like I have to mold into other people's traditions. And you don't want to say no because you don't want the confrontation. For example, on Thanksgiving, I'm asked to bring a certain dish, a dish that I never grew up eating. I would never eat, but I make it because they ask me to. And I still have never even tried it. And I make it every year. And I do it because I don't want to disappoint them. And I think when I really think about it, I think they're asking me to make this dish because it's easy and they don't want to burden me. But I brought it to another level and made it homemade because I wanted to impress them.
Wow. Look at all the ways that do you hear all the ways that Kristen just went through that little one dish tradition? Brought, like, they gave it to me because it was easy, but I wanted to impress them. So I made it homemade, which made it harder. And I didn't want to disappoint them. They don't want to disappoint you. They probably want you to feel included.
Right.
I can't even tell you how often we are managing other people's emotions by operating from a place that's not entirely true. Right?
Right. Yeah. That's a big one.
Wow. It's real big, real big.
It just took me till recently. I'm thinking, why are they asking me to make this? This is so weird. Like, I'm getting angry about it. And then I'm thinking, well, wait, why did they ask me to make this? They do love me. They're not doing this out of vengeance.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And maybe you could say, hey, this isn't something I even like. So for me at least, if somebody's making my coffee, but they're not a coffee drinker, I don't want them to make coffee because I want it to taste good. And so when I know that I'm at someone's house that doesn't really enjoy coffee, I bring it with me because I'm like, I'll make my coffee. I want it to taste like my coffee in the morning. But if somebody doesn't eat the thing they're preparing, how will we know if it tastes good? So here you are set up to make something that you don't even eat or like maybe, and ask them, is it okay if I bring my favorite dish instead and let someone else make that one, or I'll do both?
And I'm sure they would say, sure.
Yeah. And the key there is, why are you not speaking your truth and instead allowing it to feed a way to be angry? It's giving you anger. And I'm a big believer that the food we make should have love in it. And if you're over there not enjoying it, I think it impacts the quality of that experience for them, even if you never share it.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to talk about that I think is really big for a lot of people is biting your tongue to avoid conflict, especially with people that were not part of your traditions growing up. And how do you, and even if it doesn't have anything to do with the tradition, just being around them in a holiday setting is triggering. How can we prepare ourselves, or how do we walk in with love and let go instead of really holding on to the way they said one word and being so angry about it the whole night, and maybe even holding on to it for a long time?
Oh, yeah. People can hold on to stuff forever. People can carry grudges days, weeks, months, and even years and decades. I can point to my family and see that play out. I think that's the work we have to do ourselves. We can't control other people holding grudges. But for me, I had to really examine how attached I am to those expectations that I have of others, and expectations I have of the experience through the whole holiday season, expectations I have when I pour my heart and soul into making something special and have it go unnoticed. Is like, well, was that really a gift of love, or was that a manipulation to feel love? I had to ask myself some hard questions and realize that everybody's allowed to be where they are. Everyone's allowed to have a bad mood. Everyone's allowed to have an opinion. Everybody's allowed to be who they are in the moment. And when I practiced this simple word, acceptance of what is, without a need to change anything about that moment or that person or that barb, or that zinger or that snub or that person who comes in looking like all that and thinking they know all the answers when they really don't. And you've got to go, rather than sit in judgment, I'm just going to accept that they're doing the best they can today. That's their coping mechanism. All I'm in charge of is me. I have complete control over how I'm going to respond and react over the holidays and the rest of the year. And there was a book written about don't sweat the small stuff. And then the subtitle was It's All Small Stuff. That's so true. And I think the older we get, the more we get that concept. But if you mindfully approach the holidays, it doesn't matter. What does matter? What is the thing that lasts? And it's love.
Right.
So if we can just show up and be loving and accepting and kind, and know that if somebody's poking you, or hopefully you're not around people that are trying to humiliate or embarrass you, but if you are, don't let them. Just kind of distance yourself, create some natural barriers. If you want, say, don't bite your tongue. Say, you know what, that comment you just made was very hurtful, and let it be. At least you spoke it out.
Why
right?
do you feel comfortable saying that to me? There is an example, I was talking about my family Christmas party, and one year my dad didn't go. He chose not to go for a certain reason. And I was very, very upset about it towards another person. And I understood their reason. Their reason made a lot of sense to me, but it was breaking the tradition of the magic of my dad being there. And I was laying there that night in their house because I was staying with them and I had come back from the party, and it just came to me because I was so upset about it. And I just heard in my head, love them where they're at.
Yes.
And it was so huge to me. Like, we get so angry about how these people, we feel like it's being directed towards us when a lot of the times it isn't. It's like, so how can we have compassion for these people that may say something snotty to you? And that wasn't the situation in that situation, but say something that really triggers you. Can we think, well, that really isn't about me, and I'm not going to let that ruin my holiday spirit.
Right.
It's really hard, but it's really profound when you can do it.
When they set off a trigger, it's hard because you're triggered, right? And so now you're just in the emotion of it. But if you can, my mentor always said, when you get triggered by someone, write them a thank you note. The first thing you do is say, thank you for helping me see another place in me that needs to heal. Triggers often happen, and the first thing we do is think it's about the other person, because they set off the trigger. But the trigger lives in us, right? It's ours. We're responsible for all the triggers we have. That was a hard pill to swallow because I had a whole lot of triggers when I started into my coaching program. And Carol was like, no, write a thank you note. Say, thank you for showing me another part of me that needs to heal. And then I love what you said, Kristen, is love them where they are. Because that's about them. And sometimes the trigger is there because they're telling me a truth about myself that I don't want to face. And I have to go in and explore that. But accepting what is. It doesn't mean condoning. It doesn't mean you're tolerating it. It means I'm accepting what is right now in this moment. They have a need to be hurtful because probably they're hurting. I have a need to examine what of that is true for me and what is not, and let go of what I can't control, which is pretty much everything except my reaction. Right. And then I get to choose how I'm going to be. I'm going to, if I'm going to, hurt someone back, or am I going to respond in love? I got to tell you, sometimes you just want to hurt back. It feels so good to just throw a punch now and then, but that doesn't, in the long run, work. That's not a good strategy for your own inner peace or to bring peace into our world, right? So always trying to say, okay, if I know they're doing the best they can, I accept what is in front of me. They're giving me information about themselves and their own pain right now, but I'm in charge of mine, and I'm going to choose to respond with love.
And it's interesting how, we think of love as like the best feeling or the best emotion, but in a lot of situations, it's really, really, really hard to choose love.
Very.
Why? Why is that?
Right? It's our ego mind. We want to be right. We want to protect our wound. We learned how to respond in ways that got us through surviving our childhood. I mean, we learned coping mechanisms, right? And so it's what we know. It's familiar, the way we respond. It's automatic for many of us. And we have to go back and retrain ourselves to consciously choose love. It won't come natural all the time. And there's no better way to test this out than over the holidays. So to wrap up for today, we want to really encourage you, one, to get rest and take care of yourself. Two, to calm your nervous system. Do things that help calm your nervous system, not get it overstimulated with too much activity. 3, pay attention. Alcohol is a very big part of family traditions and holidays, and alcohol can be one of the biggest doorways for fighting and getting hurt and creating drama there ever was. So if you can abstain or limit the amount of alcohol, along with getting not enough rest, you are going to find yourself in a lot of dramas. And practice those 6 behaviors, pay attention to those 6 behaviors of the people pleaser. Learn how to speak your truth with love and get unattached to the reaction that happens when you do, because that's something people have to work through when you say, this doesn't work for me anymore. And if you need to get support, for how to cope with some of that, because breaking age-old traditions is not easy, and it does come with reaction from everyone. So, but I have to tell you that these traditions and these holidays give us so much fertile soil to grow from. It exposes all kinds of things for us.
And maybe to think about creating a new tradition just for you. I was sitting here thinking, what would feel so magical to me would be to sit by myself for an hour at night with the Christmas lights on and a cup of coffee and Christmas music and just find my own relaxation in the holiday spirit with the quiet. Because
Yes.
when I can calm my nervous system, it's a huge gift to me. So how can you find, I'm stumbling on my words. How can you find a tradition that's a gift to yourself as well to keep your cup full throughout the hustle and the bustle?
Yes, absolutely. And it'll make everything more magical when you do that. So caring for others and caring for yourself through the holidays with love. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you found a spark of wisdom to carry with you, and maybe even a deeper invitation to heal and grow and transform through your own beautiful story. Or maybe this episode made you think of someone who could use encouragement. And if so, I hope you will share it with them. If you'd like to learn more about working with me or attending one of my healing retreats, coaching programs, and other offerings, you can visit my website at jennyaiello.com or email me directly at jenny@jaiello.com. You'll find all the links in the show notes. If today's episode touched you, it would mean the world if you would leave a review or share it with someone who might need it, or just reach out and let me know how it landed for you. I'd love to hear from you. I'm building something special here. Real stories, real life, real connection. One episode, one heart, and one story at a time. As always, with love. Oh, and this is the legal message, but mostly a message from my heart. And I just need to share this with you right now. Please know this podcast is offered solely for educational and entertainment purposes. If you find yourself triggered due to anything that was shared in this podcast, please seek professional help. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for mental health services. While I am a professional life coach, I am not a psychotherapist, nor am I a mental health clinician. So if you are struggling emotionally, please seek help, because you matter, you are important, and most of all, you are worthy of doing this work, the work that leads you to a better and healthier place. Okay? All right. Thank you. And please always make enough time to take care of yourself, and do so with love.